I grew up thinking that if you always told the truth, the people who loved you would never leave. But I was wrong. Because one night, when I was 20, a lie changed my life forever. And it didn't come from me. You ever have a moment where everything in your life splits in half? Before and after? Mine came with a single phone call from my mom. I was sitting on my futon, exhausted from my job at the campus bookstore, when the phone rang, and her voice on the other end was frantic, breaking in a way I'd never heard before. "Come home now. It's urgent, please." No explanation, no context, just panic. So I did what any son would do. I grabbed my keys and drove straight there, a pit forming in my stomach the entire ride. When I walked through the door, the air felt wrong, heavy, like I had just stepped into a funeral. My parents were sitting on the couch. Aunt Carol was there too, pacing. And the second I saw her, I knew it had to be about Maya, her daughter, my little cousin. I asked what was going on. That's when my mom looked me in the eye, tears welling, and said the words that would ruin the next decade of my life. "Liam," Maya said something, "about you. From when she was little," she said, "you touched her. Inappropriately." I stopped breathing. I think my brain tried to shut down to protect itself because I literally couldn't understand what I was hearing. I remember blinking, swallowing, looking at each face, waiting for someone to laugh or say, "This is a joke." No one did. "She was 7. You were 14, my mother continued. My aunt looked like she wanted to scream. My father didn't say a word. My sisters weren't even there. Only Sarah had apparently heard it from Maya first and told everyone. I denied it. Of course I denied it, because it wasn't true. It never happened. I told them I had no idea what Maya was talking about, that I would never do something like that they knew me. But it didn't matter. There was a moment I'll never forget, when my father stood up, walked toward me, and said with a calm voice that cut deeper than any scream, "You need to leave, tonight. We need time to think." They didn't say I was guilty. They didn't press charges. But they didn't defend me either. I was given a bag, $100 in cash, and told to stay away from the house until they could figure things out. I asked to speak to my sisters. Chloe had blocked me. Sarah never replied. The last text I got from either of them said, "I don't want to hear from you again." And just like that, I was alone. I went from family dinners and Sunday brunches to silence. From birthday parties and Christmas mornings to nothing. From having a life to having no one. The next few months were a blur. I dropped out of community college because I couldn't focus. I crashed on a friend's couch until the awkwardness got too much and ended up in a dingy sublet where I couldn't sleep at night. I kept thinking I'd wake up and realize it was some sick nightmare, but every morning I'd check my phone and see the same thing. Nothing. No texts, no missed calls, no explanations, just the void. And the worst part, I didn't know if the police were coming. If Maya had told someone outside the family, I lived with the constant fear that a knock on the door could mean handcuffs. So I stopped answering the door. I started drinking to numb the anxiety. I read legal forums obsessively at 3 a.m., trying to understand how someone defends themselves against a lie. But it wasn't just the fear, it was the betrayal. These people raised me. They knew who I was. I changed Maya's diapers. I helped her build Lego castles. And now, she was the reason I couldn't sleep, why I had panic attacks, why my life had collapsed. There were nights I wanted to call them all, scream at them, beg them to believe me. But what would be the point? They'd already decided. And so I vanished, quietly. The way you do when you realize you're not someone's son anymore, you're a ghost they can't even look at. For nearly a decade, I didn't hear my name in a familiar voice. Not until the email came, the one that would change everything. You'd be amazed how quiet the world can get when no one believes in you. After that night, I stopped existing to my family. No birthdays, no holidays, no messages to check if I was still alive. And after a while, I stopped expecting them. Hope is a cruel thing when it's misplaced. I stayed in that tiny moldy apartment for almost a year, window jammed shut, a second-hand mattress on the floor, barely enough heat in the winter. The place was supposed to be temporary, but time blurs when you're depressed. You stop marking the days. I was 20. I should have been in school, planning my life, dating, screwing up in normal ways, not living like a fugitive from something I didn't do. Every time my phone buzzed, I panicked. Was it a cop? A lawyer? Another person from my past cutting me off? My anxiety was so bad I stopped going outside, unless I absolutely had to. I'd walk to the store with my hoodie up and sunglasses on, like someone might recognize me. Even though no one really knew what I was accused of, I was paranoid anyway. And the thing is, when something like this happens, you can't explain it to anyone. How do you tell a new friend, Hey, just so you know, my entire family thinks I molested my cousin, even though I didn't want to hang out. You don't, you just lie by omission. You ghost people. You keep everyone at arm's length. Because what if they find out? What if they believe it too? I tried to tell one person, my old college friend Mark. We had shared dorm rooms and stupid inside jokes. I thought he would understand. But after I told him, his whole demeanor changed. He didn't accuse me, but something behind his eyes shifted, like I was something fragile, or dangerous, or both. We never spoke again after that. That was when I realized even suspicion can rot your life from the inside out. I stopped going by my last name, started using Liam K on every application, every document. It gave me just enough distance from Google to hide in plain sight. I took whatever work I could find, cleaning gutters, delivering furniture, nighttime janitorial gigs, anything off the radar, anything that didn't ask too many questions. Sometimes I'd go weeks without talking to another person. I'd stare at my phone, scrolling through old photos, group shots at my cousin's birthday, me holding my niece when she was born, my mom laughing in the kitchen with flour on her cheek. These weren't strangers. They were my people. And now they might as well have been characters from a book I misread. The worst moments weren't the quiet ones. They were the ones when rage came roaring in. The nights I'd scream into a pillow, punch the drywall until my knuckles bled, fantasize about barging into a family gathering and demanding answers, screaming the truth at them so loud they'd have to listen. But I never did, because I knew they wouldn't. You can argue with people who've already written your name in black ink under Monster, and Maya, I hated her. I hated her in ways that scared me. I'd picture her face sometimes, what she looked like as a kid, those big brown eyes and gap-toothed smile, and wonder what version of me she would invent it in her head. Was it a power trip? A cry for help? Did she even know the damage she caused? Then I'd spiral. Maybe she did believe it happened. Maybe she confused something. Maybe I did something without knowing. Maybe I'm not remembering something. It got bad. Really bad. I started to wonder if I was going insane. Eventually, I hit bottom. It was a night in late 2022. I was drunk, alone, and staring at an unopened bottle of sleeping pills. Not to take all at once, but the thought was there, not as a plan, but as an option. The just-in-case kind of thought that starts to linger a little too long. That was the night I called a hotline, just once, just to talk. It was a quiet voice on the other end. Female, calming. I don't remember what she said, but I do remember crying. The kind of ugly, heaving sobs that leave you gasping for air like you've been underwater too long. That call didn't fix everything, but it gave me a flicker of clarity. I didn't want to die. I just didn't want to keep living like this. So I made a promise to myself. If I couldn't fix what happened, I'd at least fix what came next. In 2023, I got a real job. Apprentice electrician. Blue collar, hands-on, honest work. No BS, and for the first time in years, I had a routine. I was around people who didn't ask questions about my past because they were too busy living in their own chaos. I saved money. I stopped drinking every night. I started jogging in the mornings, even when it sucked. I went to therapy twice a month. I got a prescription for my anxiety. I still kept to myself, but I was functional. And slowly, very slowly, I started to believe I might have a future. I even bought a house. Not a nice one, but it was mine. A fixer-upper on the edge of town with creaky floors, a weird smell in the attic, and a tiny workshop in the back. It was the first place I'd lived that felt like a home. I planted herbs. I fixed the roof. I built shelves. I made something that was mine, that no one could take away. I wasn't healed. I wasn't whole, but I was surviving. And then, almost 9 years after my family threw me away, I got an email from my mother. The subject line just said, "Hi, Liam." The subject line read, "Hi, Liam." 9 years of silence. And that's how she started. I didn't open it at first. I stared at it for a whole hour. Just her name in the sender line was enough to make my hands sweat. My stomach twisted like it remembered the night they all turned on me and wasn't sure if it was ready for round two. Eventually I clicked. It wasn't long, just a few paragraphs. Polite, tentative, neutral. She said she hoped I was well, that she thought of me often, that the family missed me, that Sarah had a baby. A boy, my nephew apparently. His name was Carter. That part hit me like a punch. I had a nephew. A whole person I'd never met. A child who would grow up never knowing the uncle who was erased from the family photo album. Then at the very end she added, "If you're open to it, I'd like to write more. I understand if you're not. With love, Mom." That was it. No mention of Maya. No apology. Just an opening, a crack in the wall that had been up for nearly a decade. I didn't respond. Not then. But a week later, a second email came. This one was different. It started off normal again. Updates. Small talk. An anecdote about my dad fixing the porch light wrong, something I would have laughed at back in the day. Then came the twist. I wanted to tell you something that happened, she wrote. At the family reunion, Maya had what I can only describe as a breakdown. I sat up straighter. She was crying, shaking. Said she needed to say something, and in front of everyone, she told us it wasn't real. My vision blurred. I had to read it 3 times. She said, "It wasn't real. I think I made it up. I was scared." 9 years. 9 years. That single sentence shattered me. According to my mom, Maya admitted she didn't know why she said what she did. That maybe she was confused. That she would misremembered. That she wanted attention. That she had been scared of something. Not me, but maybe something else, and my name was the one she clung to. She said the words. I made it up. Just like that, the lie was out in the open. And everyone believed her now. The rest of the email was a whirlwind of guilt and desperation. My mom said the entire family was shocked, that they cried, that they were sick with regret, that they couldn't believe what they had done to me, that they were so sorry. They said they never meant to abandon me, that they were terrified, that they didn't know what to believe at the time and chose wrong, that they wanted me back. I closed my laptop, and I sobbed. Not because I was relieved, not yet, but because hearing it, really hearing it, was like reopening a wound that had just barely scarred over. They believed me now, but where were they when it mattered? A few weeks later, I got a text. Unknown number. Hi Liam, it's Maya. I'm sorry. I stared at the screen for a long time. That was it. No explanation, no real apology, just I'm sorry. Like she had spilled milk. Like she had missed a dinner reservation. I replied. And I didn't hold back. I told her what she had done, the life she had burned down, the years I'd spent afraid, alone, jobless, homeless, hopeless. I told her about the pills, the therapy, the silence. I told her she didn't just hurt me, she annihilated me. I ended with, "You ruined my life, and you get to go on with yours. Don't contact me again." She never responded. I didn't know what to do with the rest of the family. For days, I avoided every attempt they made to reach out. My dad sent a voicemail. Chloe sent a Facebook message. I didn't open. Even Sarah, the one who passed on the accusation in the first place, emailed me saying she felt sick about it. Eventually, with the help of my therapist, I agreed to one phone call with my parents. It was surreal. Hearing their voices after so long was like a time warp. My mom broke down crying almost instantly. My dad's voice trembled. The man I once thought was unshakable sounded like a hollowed-out version of himself. They apologized, over and over. They admitted everything, that they panicked, that they chose Maya's safety over mine because you don't question a child, that they were scared of being wrong, but chose to be wrong in the worst way. They said they had told everyone in the family the truth, that they were trying to undo the damage, that they didn't expect forgiveness, but they hoped for a chance to know me again. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just listened. And when they finished, I said this. I want to believe you're sorry. I really do, but I don't know how to forgive people who only looked for the truth after it stopped being inconvenient. Silence. Then my dad whispered, "We deserve that, all of it." We agreed to talk again, cautiously, slowly. Not as a family, but as people trying to understand how they became strangers. The house was the same. That was the first thing I noticed. Same blue shutters, same wind chimes on the porch, same worn-out welcome mat with the W curling off the edge. It was like the place had been cryogenically frozen while I spent nearly a decade unraveling. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, the engine off, my hands on the wheel, watching the front door, half expecting someone to walk out and tell me to leave again, half hoping they would so I could turn around and call it closure. But eventually, I got out. The porch creaked under my weight. That stupid wind chime played its hollow little tune, and before I could knock, the door opened. My mom stood there. She looked smaller than I remembered, grayer, older in a way that wasn't just age, guilt, maybe. Her eyes welled up the second she saw me. She reached out like she wanted to hug me, but I stepped back. She nodded, dropped her arms, and stepped aside. "Come in," she whispered. The air inside smelled like lemon cleaner, and something burnt, probably her attempt at baking, which she never quite mastered. The couch was new, but the old family photos were still on the wall. All of them, except the ones with me. I scanned the room. Every group shot now had a strange gap, like someone had taken a scalpel to the past and carefully removed me frame by frame. It wasn't just forgetting. It was erasure. My dad was sitting in his recliner. Same spot, same posture. He stood up when he saw me, but he didn't speak. He looked like he would rehearsed 100 speeches and forgot them all at once. We sat, three people who had once eaten thousands of meals together, now unsure how to breathe in the same room. For a while, it was silence. Then my mom asked, "Do you want something to drink?" I shook my head. And then finally, I spoke. "I need you both to understand something. I'm not here because I forgive you. I'm here because I need to say out loud what you put me through, what you let happen." They nodded. My dad's jaw clenched, his eyes bloodshot. So I told them everything. The panic, the nights I slept with a chair wedged under the doorknob, the friendships I lost, the drinking, the therapy, the job rejections when I couldn't provide a single family reference, the shame that stuck to my skin like mold I couldn't scrub off, the way I hated myself for things I didn't even do. I watched my mother crumble under the weight of it. At one point, she buried her face in her hands and just wept. My father stared at the floor like it might open up and swallow him whole. When I was done, I didn't feel relief. I felt empty, like I had just dug up a corpse I'd buried years ago, only to find it staring back at me. They apologized, again, but it wasn't the same as before. This time, it was quiet, honest, raw. "We failed you," my dad said. "We failed in the most important way a parent can fail." And for the first time, I believed him. They asked if I wanted to stay for dinner. I declined. I wasn't ready for that. But I did agree to come by again, someday. And that was enough, for them and for me. The next few months were strange. I reconnected with Sarah first. Her tone was cautious, but her remorse was clear. We talked about Carter, my nephew. She sent pictures. He had dimples like I used to. That made me cry in private. Chloe took longer. She was colder, defensive at first, but eventually she cracked, said she had spent years avoiding the topic, convinced it would never be resolved. She said she was ashamed of how quickly she turned on me. She had every reason to be. But I told her I appreciated the honesty. We started texting, not like siblings, not yet, but like two people trying to remember what it meant to trust each other. And then there was Maya. Radio silence. After my brutal reply to her message, she vanished. I heard from Sarah that Maya had dropped out of college for a while, that she was in therapy, that the family was keeping distance until she made a genuine effort to make things right. That never came. Not really. I didn't push for it. At that point, I didn't need her to fix what she broke. She couldn't. The damage was already done, but the healing, that part was mine now. In early spring, I did something I never thought I would. I hosted a family barbecue. At my house. It wasn't everyone, just my parents, Sarah, Carter, and Chloe. It was awkward, yeah, but also warm. Carter ran around in my backyard like he would live there his whole life. Sarah helped me with the grill. My mom brought a pie that was somehow both burnt and undercooked, which made us laugh harder than we expected. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't have to be. Later that night, after they'd all gone home, I stood alone in my little workshop. I looked around at the shelves I built, the tools I bought with my own money, the insulation I'd installed one cold night in January with numb fingers and a space heater. And I realized something. This place, this life, it was mine. Not because they gave it to me, but because I survived long enough to build it myself. Healing isn't something that just happens. It doesn't show up like a delivery, ringing your doorbell with a neatly wrapped box of closure. It's a choice. A painful, deliberate choice you have to make every single day, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. After the barbecue, something shifted in me. Not all at once, but subtly, quietly, like spring thawing the edges of a long winter. I started sleeping a little better. I stopped bracing for impact every time I got a text. I walked through town without ducking my head or avoiding eye contact. And maybe the biggest change, I started saying yes. Yes to invitations. Yes to conversation. Yes to the idea that maybe, just maybe, the world wasn't out to crush me anymore. Her name was Claire. I met her at work. She ran inventory at the supply office. Smart, sarcastic, sharp as hell. The first time I made her laugh, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Real. We started talking during breaks. Then she asked me out casually, like it wasn't a big deal, and I almost said no. Because I still had this voice in the back of my head whispering, "Shell leave too, Shell hear the story, Shell disappear." But I said yes. And a few months later, she asked me the question I'd been dreading. "So, what happened with your family?" I froze. The old Liam, the one who hid, deflected, pushed people away, wanted to shut down. But I didn't. I told her, all of it. I watched her face, ready for the judgment, the doubt, the slow withdrawal, but it didn't come. Instead, she said, "That's horrific. I'm so sorry." Then she reached across the table, touched my hand, and said something I'll never forget. "Anyone who survived that and still built what you did, that's not just strong, that's unbreakable." I didn't cry. But I wanted to. We didn't move fast. I couldn't. My scars weren't just emotional. They were stitched into how I communicated, how I trusted, how I existed around another human being. But she was patient. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't try to rush me. She just stayed. And eventually, I let her all the way in. Meanwhile, my family and I kept our fragile bridge intact. We didn't pretend nothing had happened. In fact, we talked about it, often, uncomfortably, honestly. My dad, who'd once been the stone wall of the family, cried in front of me for the first time during one of our dinners. He admitted that not a day went by when he didn't think about how quickly he had thrown me out. My mom started going to therapy. She told me she was learning to stop running from guilt and to start sitting with it, feeling it, as part of her penance. Sarah brought Carter over sometimes, and for the first time I let myself enjoy being an uncle. He had no idea what I'd been through. To him, I was just the guy who knew how to make pancakes in the shape of dinosaurs. That was enough. Maya, though, she stayed quiet. I heard whispers through the family that she would move to another city, that she was working at a library, that she was still working through things. Whatever that meant, she never tried again to reach out, and I never asked her to. Forgiveness isn't something I owed her. But indifference, that was my freedom. One night, about a year after everything came out, I stood on my porch holding a cup of coffee, looking out at the yard I'd mowed, the garden I'd planted, the light fixtures I'd installed with my own hands. And I felt it. Peace. Not the loud, dramatic kind you see in movies, not some fireworks moment of triumphant healing, but the quiet kind, the kind that sneaks up on you, the kind that says, "You made it." I thought about the boy I used to be, the one who stood in that same yard, bags in hand, being told to leave. I thought about how small he felt, how abandoned, how utterly lost. And I wanted to tell him something, that it would take years, that he would lose everything, that he would think about ending it all, that no one would come to rescue him, but also that he would survive. He would claw his way out of the darkness. He would build a life, a home, a version of happiness no one could take away. And that one day the lie that destroyed him would finally lose its power. Because the truth, his truth, would win. I still go to therapy. I still have days where I spiral. I still wake up sometimes with old ghosts rattling the windows of my mind. But I answer the door now. I let the light in. And I remind myself, I was buried under a lie. But I grew anyway.